Steph, good morning. And you were looking at those traffic cameras. We're going to bring you right back to the streets now. And unfortunately, it means more delays if you are driving downtown because there's some major work on the way for the Gardiner Expressway. 2 ramps are going to be torn down, leading to a number of weekend closures along Lakeshore East between September and November. Construction will begin tonight at 9 p.m. as crews demolish the Logan Avenue on and off ramps at the far east end. This is all part of the city's long-term plan to help revitalize the Portlands. Now, the city hopes to have bigger and safer intersections, not only for drivers, but also for pedestrians and cyclists. So here's what it looks like right now. We'll bring you to a live shot of the Gardiner. The city says this work is part of a nearly $1 billion project of revitalization. It's expected to be done in 2024. Now, coming up just after 7 o'clock, we're going to hear from Eric Holmes with the City of Toronto. We're going to break down the exact timeline on this project, what it's going to mean, and how it will impact your drive in the short and long term. To some other news now. A man in his 30s has died after a motorcycle crash near High Park. Now, police were called here to the scene on Bloor Street West near Indian Road just after 10 o'clock last night after reports that a motorcycle colliding with a van. When crews arrived, they located a man trapped underneath a second parked vehicle. He was in life-threatening condition. They attempted life-saving measures. The man was later pronounced dead at the scene. There's no word yet if there will be any charges laid, but police are continuing to investigate. Well, it seems we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to learn more about a province-wide vaccine certificate program. A planned announcement reportedly scheduled for today. It's now on hold. City News reporter Maliha Sheikh with the latest on what we know so far.
I immediately think of people just trying to go into a Tim Hortons, maybe to get a coffee, or trying to get in somewhere out of the rain, and they will be denied because maybe they don't have the right ID to go with the vaccine passport.
Tommy Taylor is a frontline shelter worker in Toronto. He says although a vaccine certificate would be a step in the right direction to keep all Ontarians safe, he hopes the province considers racialized communities and those experiencing homelessness before they unveil one. Dr. Amit Arya says before we push the certificate, efforts still need to be made to get more individuals vaccinated.
I want to point out that everyone who is at this point unvaccinated is not an anti-vaxxer. So there are many people who are unfortunately still facing barriers to obtaining the vaccine, people who just need that conversation, people who just have a few questions and are maybe on the fence. We have to ask ourselves, who is going to be enforcing the vaccine certificate? So that is something that could lead to further mistrust in racialized communities.
The frontline shelter worker we spoke with says he hopes if the provincial government announces a vaccine passport system, they speak with homeless advocates beforehand to discuss how this is going to work for people who don't have access to proper ID. For City News, I'm Maliha Sheikh.
Okay, so as you just heard, there are a lot of issues that may arise with the creation of a vaccine passport system, but Toronto officials maintain there are also benefits with having this kind of system in place.
Certainly when it comes to the notion of passports or certificates or some method of verification, the experience around the world has shown that this is something that actually does increase vaccine uptake.
As we've seen in BC and Quebec, they said in both cases, the news said this weekend, they had a spike up in the number of people that get vaccinated. And as Dr. Davila said, that's what we're very focused on at the moment.
Mayor John Tory, Dr. Eileen Davila, and the chair of Toronto's Board of Health, Councillor Joe Cressy, making a vaccine strategy announcement. That's happening at 10:45 this morning, so stay tuned for that. And coming up at 7:30, we're going to hear from Ontario Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca about the meeting and news conference that he had yesterday with other opposition leaders and stakeholders, calling on the Ford government to create a practical vaccine passport system. So all of that to come here, and this specific interview happening at 7:30. All of this is happening as the U.S. is now cautioning Americans to avoid travel to Canada. The CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control, issuing a level 3 advisory for Canada because of high levels of COVID infection in our country. The U.S. border to Canada remains closed off to non-essential travel until at least September 21st. Meantime, the European Union recommending that travel restrictions be reimposed on U.S. travelers due to rising COVID cases in the States. But the EU also recommending that its 27 nations allow non-essential travel to resume for Canadian travelers. The Minister of Immigration, Marco Mendicino, and Foreign Affairs Minister Marc Arnault providing an update. It's happening at 8:30 this morning, and this is regarding the situation in Afghanistan. It comes as the U.S. officially ending its two-decade war in the country. Celebratory gunfire here ringing out as Kabul, across Kabul, I should say, before dawn, after the last U.S. troops took off from the airport. The U.S. also confirming the troops left the country hours before that August 31st deadline. U.S. military officials believe the Taliban now have a greater task ahead of them when it comes to fighting ISIS-K.
I do believe the Taliban's going to have their hands full with ISIS-K, and they let a lot of those people out of prisons, and now they're going to be able to reap what they sowed.
Now, the 20-year war took the lives of nearly 2,500 U.S. troops and an estimated 240,000 Afghan residents. America's longest war also cost roughly $2 trillion. U.S. President Joe Biden will be speaking about the end of this war this afternoon. That's happening at 1:30, so please do stay with citynews.ca for more on that.